Texas Platinum is back in full session. We got the three of us finally here together. We got Matt Myers, Matt Madrid, and myself. It's Bama week. Big things are happening. We're finally back to doing regular content. We're sorry. Myers already gave an apology, but now I'm giving my apology. Things have been hectic. Life has been, crazy. But we're here to finally discuss, some Texas Longhorn football with y'all and cover one of the biggest games of the entire season in Texas, Bama, at least in terms of a, hyped matchup standpoint. So yeah, we'll touch a little bit on the ULM game as a recap, but we really don't want to spend much time on that. We want to cover, Bama as much as we can. So we'll definitely do that and kind of skim over that part. But just so you're aware, but it'll mostly be Texas Bama. So if you're new here, please like, comment, subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel. We've kind of hit a bit of a stoppage in subscriptions for a while, and rightfully so. Our content hasn't been what it once was, but with that said, we're looking to do more this season and are going to be back with a greater form of regularity. So we'd appreciate that subscription so we can continue to grow and provide good content for you guys. So please help us out with that. All right, let's get started. First, we're going to kind of address just the magnitude of this game, what we're expecting in terms of the environment in Austin. We have game day coming to town. We have Big Noon Kickoff coming to town. We got Josh Pate's, tour coming to town, which no one ever talks about, but should talk about because he's amazing. Myers and Madrid, kind of walk me through your thoughts on what fans should expect this coming Saturday in terms of the atmosphere in Austin. And let me know if anyone's going to actually be there. I'll be out of town, but I will be watching.
Hey, Matt Madrid, you know how we always talk about, it's not very exciting playing Texas Tech and Iowa State at home every week.
Yeah,
we finally have a big brand coming to town, and DKR has earned this reputation over the past 10 years, 20 years of being a wine and cheese crowd, and It is for the most part. However, I think that is because our home schedule is just so barren every year. We get like a USC, a LSU, a Bama, a Notre Dame like once every 3 years, and those games are always electric. So I expect this one to be very electric. Even though it's 11 a.m., it's going to be kind of like the Cotton Bowl, where it's such a big game that it doesn't matter. Fans will still be there at kickoff. It'll be a full house and it'll be loud. Shouldn't be too hot, but man, it's going to be the spot to be this weekend with game day in town, like you said, Fox Big Noon and Josh Pate. There was like Brian Davis tweeting about the Today Show coming. I think that's like a troll, but basically, I think Britney Spears is going to be in town for it too. That's what I heard.
Hinted.
And I'm so excited to interact with all these Alabama Southerners, these SEC, Deep South people, and just kind of talk to them and see how they feel about Texas joining the league, and show them what it's like in Austin. So it's going to be, from an atmosphere standpoint, very exciting. I will be going to the game. I'll be on the upper decks, but I will be there. I wouldn't miss this one. I mean, when's the next time we're going to play Bama? I guess we are going to play them more in the future, but
a couple years.
Yeah, but this one's going to be big for us, and I think the players will. Just big picture real quick before I pass it to Madrid. We haven't been the 20-point underdogs literally in my entire life, I don't think. And it's kind of nice just going into a game where it's usually Texas is by far the more talented team. And, it's Texas, don't screw this up. Now it's kind of like Bama, don't screw this up. Y'all have more talent. Y'all are the favorites. Texas sucks. And our players probably just like really enjoying being the underdog for once. So I'm excited to see how we play with the roles reverse, because usually it's us with more talent across the field than TCU, Baylor, whoever we're playing. So I'm excited to see how our coaches and players respond as 20-point dogs at home.
So I am so happy to have all the bulletin board material on our side now. You go anywhere on social media, you go anywhere on even your local radio station. It's Texas getting killed. And look, is that a possibility? Sure. However, however this game turns out, it's a win for us. It's just a win for us because there are no expectations. So there is no there is no Texas slander anywhere because it's just hey, this is what was supposed to happen. And if we win, we're top. We're what everyone wants to be. So I think that is a great feeling going into a game like this. As for the atmosphere, I expect it to be LSU times 1,000. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go. Law school is just kind of hard to get away from, so that sucks. But I expect it just to be. I expect it just to be as energetic, if not more, than LSU. This is just something everyone's been waiting on. I remember when they announced this one. The excitement started then. This wasn't just oh, we play Bama this year. It's like, man, we play Bama in 4 years, 3 years. That's incredible. So I just expect everything to be top notch, and the way they're doing things at DKR now with the new stadium and the whole intros they do now on the street and everything, with Bevo Boulevard and everything. I think that's just going to be so much fun, and probably if Bama is coming at the right time when we finally have the festivities and the atmosphere outside really settled. So I think that's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it should be an exciting time. I'm curious kind of what to expect with it being at 11 a.m. Cotton Bowl comparison is a good one, Myers, because, I was kind of apprehensive to the whole 11 a.m. kickoff thing because at least from my experience of past 11 a.m.s at DKR, people are kind of strolling in, it's 11 a.m. and, they're not in their seats until the second quarter. But, for this game, I'm sure that'll be different. People will be up early and students will be rushing to get in. I will say, I will kind of disagree with you, Madrid, in saying that this will be more hype than the LSU game, because you got to remember with the LSU game, that was coming off of the Sugar Bowl win. So that was about as high as we could possibly be at that time. But, Bama in town, that alone is merit for, one of the, biggest buzzes that you can get from an opponent coming in. So regardless, is going to be a very lit atmosphere, and especially at the beginning of the game. We'll see what happens as the game progresses, but especially at the beginning, I'm sure that it'll be quite busy. I will say it's going to be a bit of a bummer that McConaughey is apparently not going to be in attendance. They wanted him for College Game Day, but he told them that he wasn't going to be there. So I'm curious what that's going to be like, having a game of that magnitude and not seeing McConaughey on the sidelines, because he's kind of a gauge, as to the bigness of games at DKR. I feel like every big game he's there. So we'll see how we do without him in the on the sideline or in the booth. But should be a big game nonetheless. Additionally, before we get into too much actual game nitty-gritty details, being that we are Texas Platinum, Myers, why don't you take this, the ban situation with Alabama? Let's touch on it briefly. Give me your thoughts and kind of fill people in on who may not know about what's going on with that.
Right. So if you haven't heard, the Alabama band will not be coming to the game because they got assigned upper deck seats, which is apparently just too disrespectful. Even though all the other Big 12 teams sit in the upper decks, our bands sit in the upper decks. It's just kind of a Big 12 thing. And I know in the SEC, they like to have their bands in the lower deck, the away bands. But I just think it's kind of funny why Alabama's making such a big deal about this. Texas is always the team that's talked about. Oh, Texas is so soft, horns down. They want a penalty for it. But these Bama fans are having an outrage because their band has to sit in the upper deck. I don't understand the big issue. But yeah, I mean, I saw Barstool Bama tweeting about it, and basically saying Texas is Bush League. All these A&M fans are all over it too. Like, yeah, Texas is so disrespectful. But like literally, it's just like this is a hot ticket, and this is just how it's been the past 5 years in DKR. The away team sits up in the upper decks like we do in most Big 12 stadiums. So I just think it's hilarious how it became such a big deal, and Bama is just, you know, definitely very upset about it. So it'll be fun to watch, man. I mean, I would have loved to heard the Bama, the band, the $1 Million Band from Bama Land or whatever it's called, but that's okay. We'll just be hearing the Longhorn Band all game long, which is even better for our home field advantage.
Drew, do you have any thoughts? You're muted.
Sorry, my bad. I just think it's kind of a funny quirk just to get mad about. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's our home game. Like, I don't know. I know it's gonna change when we go to the SEC and fine. Like, they have their traditions where like the band sits in the lower decks and everything, and fine. But like for the time being, like, all right, your opposing band goes in the upper deck. Like, deal with it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too harsh.
That brings up another point. Like, I wonder how Alabama's going to travel to this game, because they haven't really played a non-conference opponent on the road since maybe Penn State, like in 2009 or 2011, whatever it was. So they're not used to playing in spots like this outside the SEC footprint. They'll play in Atlanta or Dallas, sometimes in Arlington, neutral site games to open the season. But this is like new territory for them. So I'm sure they'll be excited to check out Austin. I mean, Austin's one of the most exciting cities in America right now. So I'm sure they'll travel pretty well, but I thought LSU would travel well whenever they came in 2019. And I didn't think they had any more fans than Tech or Baylor bring. So I just want to see how many Bama fans end up in DKR on Saturday.
I'm sure there'll be a good amount. I mean, like you said, Austin's kind of one of those destination places, and they're 20-point favorites, so they aren't risking much, to be honest. So that, and the whole intrigue of the matchups with Sark versus Saban, and seeing a potential Heisman candidate in Bijan and Quinn Ewer. I mean, there's plenty of narratives there that I think would indicate that you're going to get a pretty good Bama turnout. And I will say, I thought LSU actually did travel really well, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I expect quite a bit of Bama supporters in the city. And I am curious, though, with the game so early, how that's going to reflect the rest of the day. Because typically after an 11 a.m. game where you're just sweating, once you're done with the game, you're kind of wanting to just tap out. So I'm curious if like the parties will begin right after the game, or if it'll be like quiet for a while, and then at night all the people come out. So I'm curious how that'll go. Well, cool. That covers that. Let's actually get into some analysis here. We'll start out addressing Alabama, kind of give our thoughts on the team and kind of what we feel should be looked out for in terms of, what kind of advantages the Tide bring coming into this game. Myers, we're going to have you kind of serve as our chief Bama analyst for this show. Give us kind of a rundown of what to expect. I mean, there's the obvious names like Will Anderson and Bryce Young and others. But as a whole, what should Texas expect from this team?
Right. So we all know what Bama is and what they have been over the past 10 years, 15 years. Nick Saban's definitely the GOAT. And it's been said that this is his most talented defense he's ever had. And you can kind of see it, like you said, with Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, but there's also a lot of other guys on that defense that are just NFL players. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry, my boy at DB. I mean, Jordan Battle's back there too. So they're just all over the field. They have just NFL players, and this will be by far the best defense we will face all season. This is probably the best defense Quinn Ewers faces his entire career at Texas, for being honest. But offensively, my question is, this Alabama receiving core, because we saw against Georgia, whenever Jamison Williams went down, that defense just kind of Georgia just started just honing in on that Bama offense, and really they couldn't do much through the air or even on the ground, really. And I know we don't have Georgia defense level talent, but Bama doesn't have those freaks yet. I mean, Kobe Prentice is a guy that probably will become that at wide receiver. But, you know, Trayshawn Holden, Jermaine Burton, the transfer from Georgia, these are good receivers, but there's no Devontae Smith, no Henry Ruggs, no Jamison Williams, even a John Mechie. I don't think there's one of them out there on that defense right now. So on that offense, I'm sorry. So and Bryce Young is that good where it doesn't matter. Like he'll mitigate everything, kind of like Bijan does for us. So it doesn't matter that they don't have, you know, a superstar first round receiver. They're still gonna, you know, move the ball and score. But if we're gonna get in a shootout with them, those kind of things will matter. So I think it'll come down to our offense scoring on their defense, which, I mean, their defense is incredible, but if you look last week against Utah State, people are saying that Bama had 0 sacks and only 5 pressures against Utah State, but they also gave up like less than 80 yards rushing or total maybe. So they didn't really need to rush the quarterback. They were getting it done by just playing base defense. And I think that's what it's going to come down to for Texas, is the ability to move the ball against that Bama defense. Because if they run that 3 high safety, which Pete Golding tends to do, that's going to be an issue for Sark, because, you know, whenever we play Iowa State, Oklahoma State, or Barry Odom, Arkansas, the 3 high safeties, we always struggle with that. And I'm sure that Saban's going to, and Golding are going to definitely give us those looks and try to put Quinn Ewers in confusing positions all day long. So I think what you have to do is just run Bijan, get the ball to Bijan and screens in the flats. Just get Bijan the ball where he can do something with it, because I don't have people to run straight at him in the middle. I don't trust Jake Majors against like DJ Dale and Jaheim Oates in the middle, but you got to get creative with it. But at the same time, you don't want to go too far out of your comfort zone. I mean, we got talent too. They got talent, but you got to have some wrinkles, but not completely just throw the playbook out and just start doing things you've never done before. I mean, Gary Patterson's the wild card here. I mean, that guy is known for scheming for big games and coming up with great game plans on defense. And couple that with Sark and his ability to scheme great game plans for big games too. We saw against OU in the first half. That game plan was incredible. So it's exciting. I expect us to start fast, but can we sustain it? Because there's just talent up and down that roster. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I'm excited to see Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, this is a guy that Texas wanted out of high school, transferred to Bama from Georgia Tech. He's more of a speed guy, not your prototypical Bama running back, and he's their starter. So he's going to be kind of their I wouldn't say every down back, but he's going to be their lead guy. They got Jason McClellan behind him, but I want to see if we can get some hits on Jahmyr Gibbs, and don't let him get in the open field if possible, because if you give him a hole, he's gonna take off with it. But we got Overshown in the middle, who's got, you know, as much speed as anybody out there. So it'll be a fun matchup, man. It's just surreal that it's gonna happen. I'm just so curious how our players respond to it.
Madrid, do you have any thoughts on Bama or analysis or additional?
So when I was doing my homework on this game, look, when you're evaluating Bama, you always have to throw in like the caveat that this team is like run like an NFL team. So it's bad, not even as bad. That's what's the wrong word? As worse as some of the players are from like the ones that left last year, these guys are still coached up like very well, and they're still the cream of the crop when it comes to recruiting. So with that caveat out of the way, I do think their offensive line is something. Look, the offensive line isn't bad. However, it's kind of average, at least from last year's statistics. And I feel like that is something we can exploit, and I feel like that is something that we should exploit. However, Is our defense up to the task for that? I'm not too sure, but that should be one of the part of the game plan for sure. So on the offensive side, for Bama, I think it's that O line that we should be looking at. And again, with the receivers, like Matt said, like the days of Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, John Mechie, Jameson Williams, all in the same receiving room like that, it's probably done for now. For now, they're probably a little bit of a lull. There's a reason they went out and got Jermaine Burton, um, and so I think they have good guys there, but not great guys. But they still have Bryce Young, who of course is their X factor to our Bijan Robinson. And then defensively, their best group is their linebackers easily. It's not even close. That linebacking crew is ridiculous. And then I think it's their secondary, who I think is just not to make a pun, but like battle tested, and some of the best in the league. But and that's speaking of the secondary, that's what kind of worries me a little bit, is especially for a guy like Xavier Worthy, who's so, his game is so reliant, or at least partially reliant on big plays. And I feel like this game is going to be a lot of quick passes and a lot of short games, which is not bad. But like for a guy like Xavier Worthy to really like shine, he needs like the big play, and that kind of worries me that will get stifled. Their defensive line is good, and but I don't think it's great. But then again, it's kind of like the reverse side of like, can our D line get through their average-ish, slightly above average O line? Maybe. And then can our D line, and then can our O line protect against their slightly above average D line? And like, if we had like some solidified starters still, or like not even solidified, like stars, then I'd probably be a little bit more optimistic about it. But it's the fact that we came in with so many question marks this year that it's like, well, we can exploit that, but do we have the ability to? So that's what I think.
Great thoughts. Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with all that was said. Yeah, it'll be a very intriguing matchup for sure in terms of, those particular areas that you just touched on, Madrid. The line play, I think, will really kind of determine everything that spawns from that. We'll shift focus here. Unless you guys have any additional thoughts, we'll shift focus over to Texas. And that'll really kind of be the bulk of the show here, where we kind of analyze our own team and from there kind of touch more on the actual matchups between us and Bama, before we continue to talk too much more Bama. Let's shift over to Texas then. Myers, do you want to go ahead and get started, or would you like me to instigate this?
Trevor, you give us your thoughts first, since we've been talking for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of Texas, let's backtrack to the ULM game, kind of what we saw, and give our thoughts and use that as an opportunity to recap. From Quinn, I saw a lot of good things out of Quinn, but one thing that was, pretty clear is it was his first start and he's still pretty green. He has the skill set. I mean, he made some incredible throws, pretty much all of them off platform, but that's kind of his signature, style of play is, throwing midair, sidearm, kind of Mahomes-ish. And he made a few good throws, but he also made some, very clear mistakes, especially that first drive. That interception was, I'm sure he would, classify it as embarrassing. It just was totally forced and totally unnecessary. But from that point on, I will say this game dramatically improved, and probably just those, first game butterflies got to him, and he just, wanted to force something when he should have just threw it out of bounds. But with all that said, one thing that Quinn has got to be aware of when he's making these sidearm passes is when he's playing Bama against these massive human beings, like, do the sidearm pass like whenever you get flushed out of the pocket and you know that you're good to throw that throw. But when you're in the pocket, I would advise against the sidearm because that's going to get swatted down every time. And it never got fully swatted against ULM, but like there are times in the pocket where I'm like, don't stop, don't do that. Like, that's just not. And he'll learn that very quickly, and I'm sure he already knows that. But and that's just a very small nitpick of his game, but he's going to have to be pretty cognizant of that. I will say that, and we discussed this, together. Once Hudson Card came in the game, there really wasn't a difference at all. In fact, I will say that Hudson really hasn't taken that step in decision making. Held on to the ball quite long, and his short to intermediate passes were solid, but long passes were not connecting whatsoever. And you could say like he was playing with backup wide receivers, and some of the O linemen rotated, but not many. But it was clear that I think all of us knew, like, okay, Sark made the right move. Like after that game, it was obvious that while Quinn is still very green, and in terms of gameplay, they're not so much separated at the moment. It's very clear that one is supremely talented over the other and has the ability, I think, to very quickly evolve into a significantly better player than the other one. Nothing personal against Hudson, but that's what we saw, and I'm sure y'all saw that as well. So yeah, in terms of quarterback situation, this will be a kind of an unfair test, going against Bama, and your second start as a quarterback is, far from ideal. And he'll have to learn very quickly. And I'm sure that there will be turnovers given Quinn's, play style and the fact that it's his second game. So we're just going to have to be prepared for that. I don't want to keep talking too much more. Any other thoughts about Quinn from either of the two of y'all?
I think he has excellent pocket presence. After he settled in after the first drive, he's able to just smoothly navigate through the pocket with great footwork, and he's got a good internal timer that some people just, you're either born with it or you're not. Like Hudson Card doesn't really have that. Quinn got really, after the first drive, he really settled in and knew when to hit the check downs, and he was making good decisions, which is all you can ask for out of a freshman quarterback in his first game.
I thought he played smart. I thought he didn't rely on scrambling too much. I like that he stayed in the pocket a lot. I like that he read through all his progressions. And I like that after a interception on his second throw second, or at least first drive of his career, that didn't seem to bother him at all. All those interviews, all those press conferences about him being calm and not letting things bother him and not wearing his heart on his sleeve and just being a calm presence seems to be true so far. I mean, the true test will be on Saturday for that, but the guy doesn't look like he gets too rattled, and I think that kind of stability is attractive to a lot of players, especially the skill players, and knowing that they can rely on a guy to get the ball out on time and in the right spot. I know he didn't hit on any of his deep passes, but that's just something that's going to have to come with time. A throw like that is different at practice than it is during the game. But I don't think he did not make impressive throws. Some of those throws up the seam to Jatavion were beautiful. Oh my God, I haven't seen a Texas quarterback do that in forever. That was those spots he was hitting only in the spot that Jatavion could catch it. That is just beautiful and something that is just God-given, because having a freshman quarterback that can do that as the foundation. We're in good hands, and I'm excited to see him grow. It does suck that Bama is your second game of your career, and also the second game back after not playing football in 2 years, almost 2.5 years, year and a half. It's a long time. But I think he just needs time. But we can count on him to at least make the good and the right throw.
So yeah, additional thoughts regarding the ULM game. I would say that defensively, even though it was ULM, I feel like I saw a lot of improvement. Overshone had a really good game. He made a lot of really, solid tackles and seemed to. There were times where I'm like, oh, he's been watching film because he seemed to really know kind of where a lot of the plays were going, which to me is a good sign of progress from him because obviously he has the talent, the skill set. But if you can add that component to your game where you're seeing things before they happen, I think that can really kind of continue to grow him as a player at Texas and ultimately whenever he leaves for the NFL. Also on the defensive side of the ball, Baron Sorrell, that guy is a good addition to our team. I finally feel like we have a solid edge guy. I don't know if he's, it's only been his first, real game, but so I'm not going to call him, the guy yet or elite or anything of that nature. But I liked what I saw out of him and feel that he potentially might be able to get home, this week, this Saturday ahead against Bama. It'll obviously be a much greater challenge than the ULM O lineman. But I definitely liked what I saw. And in general, I liked our edge presence in this previous game. Because in the past, we've had no edge presence, and the only way to ever generate pressure on the quarterback was to bring, linebackers and safeties and, do all these exotic blitz packages. And the fact that we were able to I don't think we did any against, Louisiana Monroe, I think is a big sign of progress. Granted, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't even have to really try to in order to generate pressure. But the fact that there's a clear improvement over last season is something to, be hopeful about. Outside of offense, a few other key thoughts that I wanted to give before I hand it off to y'all to add on to those. Offensively, I would say that Jatavian Sanders definitely stood out as a serious, probably number 3 guy on our offense behind Bijan and Xavier. The guy showed, an ability to catch extremely well, ran some really good routes. And honestly, I think he did a good job blocking too. So really all boxes seem to be checked on Sanders to proceed forward. Kind of selfishly, I almost wish that he didn't have as good of a game before Bama, because Bama's going to prepare well for him and make sure that he's covered. Because if we didn't really showcase that, I think he could be a massive weapon and probably still will be against Alabama. But it would have been nice to hide him a little bit more. But he deserved it, and he was open and making great plays, so can't fault him for that. And I wanted to give one more. Oh, yes. Special teams. Special teams will be a big make or break in this game. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But, we have a very contrasting special teams unit right now where, punt return and punt block, I would say, is some of the best I've ever seen. We have really gotten good at punt block. And I would say punt returns. Jeff Banks has really owned that, that unit. And, we have a lot of really talented players playing on those positions. It's not just a bunch of, backups and scrubs. It's some of our key players, and they're making big plays. Deshaun Jameson definitely needs a shout out for all he did on special teams this past weekend. Xavier Worthy too, I guess, even though he needs to chill out a little bit on special teams because he scares me sometimes, but usually in a good way. But yeah, in terms of our punting and kicking game, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I was pretty high on Isaac Pearson before this game started, and then he just had just an awful awful game against Monroe. Just dropped a snap during a field goal or extra point, no field goal, and then dropped another snap during a punt. So hopefully, I'm not sure how they're going to go about it for the Bama game. I really don't. If they're going to use that walk on Trey, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, someone I never heard of before, but I mean, he looked decent. But I'm curious how we're going to address that for this game. And then kicking game looked like Bert Auburn and Will Stone split responsibilities. Again, I'm a little concerned. Bert looked decent kicking field goals, and then Will Stone was able to. He needs a little more leg power because I don't know if he can consistently hit those touchback kicks yet. I mean, he was in the game, but it required a pretty low trajectory. They were kind of forced in order to get it to the end zone. And even then it was only getting it to the goal line. So I don't know. Special teams will be a big influence on this game. And, one part of our special teams I love, another part I am very scared about. So yeah, that's the rest of my Monroe thoughts. I'll chalk it up to you guys and then we can go to keys to the game.
Yeah. First of all, special teams I thought did well for the most part, besides those two muffs from the punter and holder. Defense scored, special teams scored, offense scored, which is, I mean, we're going to have to get some touchdowns from the defense or special teams if we want a chance to beat Bama on Saturday. I wish we would have played Quinn Ewers more than we did. I feel like with a guy with that much rust on him, you got to give him as much reps as possible. And I wish we would have played him into the fourth quarter. Just get him more comfortable before Bama. Because like Madrid said, I wish we had another game before Bama, but baptized by fire. Defense, like Trevor said, looked great. Flying around to the ball, swarming. I know ULM's O-line is notoriously terrible, but even against Rice and teams like that, we wouldn't get pass rush. We would kind of get pushed around, but there was none of that until we pulled the starters on Saturday. So a lot of improvement there. I think Ryan Watts has been a great addition, starting at corner opposite of Deshaun Jameson. He looks the part. That's like a big, lengthy cornerback that's physical. So that's a welcome addition. Then Jalen Gilbo, the freshman, starting over Ja'Day Barron at the nickel spot. That's super exciting to see because Barron was supposed to be one of our better players. And the fact that Gilbo's starting over him means that we got two really good options at nickels.
Isn't Barron hurt though? Is that why?
No, he was playing.
Oh, he was?
Maybe that's why he got beat out. But yeah, they both played. But yeah, so I think the defense has improved. Gary Patterson's paying dividends there. Overall, I think it was a great performance for the first game. You can see there's a lot of potential for this team. It's going to be a work in progress. They're young, but there's a lot to be excited about. And I will say the last thing about ULM is Bijan Robinson is the best running back I've ever seen in my entire life. I think the things that guy can do whenever you give him the ball is absolutely insane. I know his numbers weren't crazy, but they didn't have to be. We didn't really need him at all. Just save him for Bama. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of touches this week, and he's going to be a part of the reason that if we want to be in this game, it's going to be mostly because Bijan kind of carried the offense for a good portion of the game. So, Bijan, we don't deserve you. Thank you for choosing Texas.
Just a few things I want to touch on real quick. One, I'm glad you brought up Bijan because there was some cuts there where he was just like in a crowd of dudes, and it's just like, how the hell did you get out of that? How did you make one move, one cut with your leg, and like send 5 dudes flying the opposite directions? I don't know. That's an NFL running back, and he's on our team. Like Matt said, thanks, man. Thanks for choosing us, man. You made life a little bit easier when it comes to offense. So I thought he played great. I think Quinn should have played a little bit more, but I get it. They wanted to have fresh legs and everything like that. I'm glad you brought up Ryan Watts because I really like the way he looks out there. He just looks like we have an adult in the room across from Deshaun, and that's like real nice. And he kind of makes up for Deshaun's weaknesses, being a smaller cornerback and everything. But O-line's a little scary. It was a little scary for me still. But that's just going to be a story for a while. With Banks look great, but he's also still a freshman, so we know how that's going to go. But I think overall they played well. I remember for a second there, I was like, I had to like come back to reality during the game a little bit because I was like, man, like Quinn just had a bad first drive. We looked kind of out of sync, doing like the whole like panic attack thing when you're a Texas fan. But then I had to look up at the score and be like, oh, it's like 45-3, so like I should probably chill, which is a good thing though because like we've come a long way from like not being able to perform right out of the gate. So I think that was a really good sign in itself right there. I mean, ULM's no fucking Maryland or anything, but still being able to crush a team when you need to crush a team is a good sign. So yeah, pretty simple thoughts for me.
Sweet. Let's go into the big crux of the video here. Keys to the game. How Texas can win this game. Myers, would you like to start this off, or would you like me to give a few instigating thoughts?
Trevor, you lead us off with your thoughts.
All right. So honestly, some of the big keys to the game that I see here, and we already kind of addressed some of this, is I think, in order for us to really do well, we got to take advantage of Alabama's weaknesses, the main one being their offensive line. Generating pressure on Bryce Young is going to be paramount. I know that he make sure we put a spy on him, by the way. That's one thing that I feel like we didn't really do against ULM, and we paid for it. But definitely putting pressure on Bryce Young, I think, is going to be necessary in order for us to really have success. Because if that guy is so good that if he has time in the pocket, it's game over. But yeah, forcing him out, I think is going to be big. And I think we can begin bringing some of those exotic blitzes. I mean, start with our defensive line, see if we can generate that way. But I say we can be a little bit more creative, offensively and defensively in this game ahead. But especially in terms of, bringing that blitz and pressure. I think that's key. Additionally, I will say another big key to game that I see is just a three-letter acronym in YAC, yards after catch, is going to be key here, because with our young offensive line and a man by the name and a man by the name of Will Anderson, that's not a great combination, as well as a freshman quarterback. So we're going to need to make sure that Quinn is, for one, getting the ball out quickly, which he has the full capability of doing. But Sark's gonna have to be creative in his drawing up his plays. I'm not saying don't get Xavier Worthy the ball on long passes, but someone else mentioned this in a video I was watching. It may have been Josh Pate actually, but he recommended that Sark needs to do what he did to Worthy as he did to Devonta Smith in the national championship game, and move him all over the field and just get him in intriguing matchups. You don't need to keep him on the outside and have him run go routes the entire game. Even though we should do that because, he's fast and can make those catches and make those plays. But I want to see him in different positions and really kind of utilize him to the best of his ability. And a lot of that will probably need to be some short passes, some screen games, jet sweeps. Really, all of those we didn't really show against ULM because we didn't need to, but I think that'll have to be kind of a bread and butter in this game for us to be really successful. It's just getting our playmakers in space and getting the ball out quick. One thing that I will add about the ULM game is I was very impressed, again, against ULM, but I was very impressed with our wide receiver blocking, which has me feeling confident that we can run some effective screens and jet sweeps. That seems to be something that's dramatically improved from our team. Not that it ever was bad, but I mean, and you guys maybe touch on this too, but I was very impressed with our wide receiver blocking from that game. And if that continues to be a trend, I think that's something that we can rely on against Bama, where it'll call for us to have to get the ball out quick. And these long developing plays, which we should still try to run, but may not be able to run to the success level that we want. The shorter plays, I think, will need to be there. But yeah, those are a couple quick thoughts. I don't want to take all of y'all's, but Myers, how about you add on to that?
Right. So we'd already talked about Jatavion Sanders and how great he was. He graded out as like the number 1 tight end on Pro Football Focus in week 1. So historically, Bama has struggled with dynamic receiving tight ends. And I think like you said, that we wish that we hit Jatavion in week 1 more to like kind of surprise Saban and company. But I think it's kind of a good thing that we put that on film, because now they have to account for Jatavion, down the seams, on just dump off passes. So I think we need to have at least 10 receptions from Jatavion because Bama, that's where you can get them, that linebacking core and pass coverage, from what I've read, is a little suspect. I mean, Jatavion's a naturally gifted 5-star, every bit of talent on that player. So that's a guy that we have that can like match up with Bama talent. Bijan needs to get at least 30 carries, not 30 carries, 30 touches this game. Maybe like 10 receptions, 20 carries.
It's one of those games.
Yeah, this is one of those.
Sorry, Gary.
You leave nothing in the tank on this one. This is what you have Bijan Robinson for, to go win games like this. And you're going to go behind Bijan and let him carry you there. I will say though that Bijan in the open field against Will Anderson, that'll be a spectacle. I want to see that, or Dallas Turner, one of the two. I like Bijan in that, but I mean, those are all great, first round picks. So I want to see Bijan just be unleashed as much as possible, kind of like TCU last year, where it's just like, Bijan, go win the game for us, and he's like, I got you, coach, and he won the game for us. Those are my two like major points on offense of what we need to do. I mean, those are kind of basic, obviously, but I mean, that's true. And then obviously Xavier Worthy. I really don't know if we want to take shots at this Bama defense. I know that Sark and Ewers are going to want to, and Worthy's going to want to take the top off. That's just who he is as a player. He loves the big plays, and he can beat a lot of these. He can probably beat most of these DBs in man. He's that good as a route runner, but I just don't know with like Jordan Battle over the top, and I just don't know if you want to test him. I think it's going to be more of that underneath game, at least to start off. But it'd be a sight to see if the first drive Quinn Ewers just takes a shot to Xavier Worthy or Ajay Hall down the field. So that's what I want to see, kind of how Sark attacks it from that point of view. Defensively, we've talked about how Bama's O-line is kind of the weakness of their team, kind of like us, at least last year. I think our O-line looked pretty good in week 1, although it was ULM. So definitely need to test that O-line. Baron Sorrell, I know that we're asking a lot out of you now, but we don't really have stars on that defense. You look good in week 1, so we need Baron Sorrell to go cause some havoc. And Overshown is an absolute specimen of a player. I don't know how he's going to project the NFL, but that's NFL talent right there. He's just an athletic freak, and he needs to be put in positions to just fly to the ball, just off the edge. He needs to cover. We're going to have to rely on Overshown to get at least 15 tackles, just to clean everything up, neutralize everything. If we want our defense to have some success against Bama, 15, maybe even 20 tackles, honestly. So, and then I want to test their receivers. I mean, like we said, they have good receivers, 4 stars, 5 stars, but we don't see any first rounders on that receiving core right now, currently NFL first rounders. So I want to get physical with them, play man, tight coverage, and just see what they're made of. I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're going to expose us a lot, but I think he's got to take the fight to those receivers, because I mean, I'm trying to find other weaknesses on this team, and there's not really many. So I guess those are the points I would want to attack is my general game plan.
Yeah, I think you all touched on the major points. If there's one thing like overarching that I could say is play fast. Just play fast and do it early. There is no time in the game like this to all right, that was the first drive against Bama. No, make the first drive, like, or like the first defensive outing, make a stand there. This is one of those where you just kind of like you rely on the best horses, man. Bijan, Winnington, Sanders, Xavier, and to some extent Quinn, obviously to have to make this game happen, because there's going to be small, the little individual matchups that we need to win, because like the overall units will just be better than ours, if that makes sense. So like I need Kelvin to win an outside block when we're running that way, just to spring loose Bijan once to get him going. You know what I mean? Like the rest of the line might be hurting in the back trying to go that block, but like as long as we win like one matchup, like that's all we need. And it's the same thing with like when Matt said, like with their receivers and everything. Like so we lock down one play, one critical third down, stuff like that. Like you just got to win those small things. And those are the type of plays that like keep you in a game, and especially in a game like this where no one really expects you to do much. It's just going to rely on if our best players are playing better than their best players, because it's just we're too raw right now. And I don't, call me crazy, but like I think some of our best players are like better than their best players, and I just think it's just on a Texas team that's young and improving that our stars get kind of how do I put this? Get kind of overlooked. So it's just those small things that I think it's gonna really take over this game. And then another main thing, it's like two-sided to this, is not hurting ourselves. Like, we cannot turn over the ball in this game. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We cannot turn over the ball. We have to be the most perfect team ever on special teams and controlling and protecting the ball. That is imperative, because that happens like twice, bro. Like I'm telling you, it's over. Like there's just no way they don't capitalize on that. And then on the flip side of that is just get a turnover or two. Like that all that matters. That like momentum shifts so easily when that happens. So those are the main things that I really want us to harp on.
Yeah, it sounds cliche, but you're so right about starting fast. I mean, that
Like in these games, it's so important,
especially at home, and then just for the team, the mental. We can't go down at half, down 14, 20 points. The game's over. We have to be in that game at halftime within striking distance, and where the team's fully locked in, because we're mentally fragile where we were last year. Definitely, we would fold whenever things went south. So we need to have that belief, and then when we do hit adversity, we need to definitely let our nuts hang a little bit and just keep going, keep rolling with the punches, and keep playing.
I will add a couple more things here, and then we'll head over to stakes of the game. That brief topic. One thing that we did not touch on entirely is it's time to get a little creative too. I mean, we played an extremely vanilla game against ULM, and I know that there are so many things that this offense is more than capable of doing that we didn't want to show. And I'd say just let like Myers just said, let your nuts hang. Like this is time to, maybe not be too cute, but like throw in a few trick plays and stuff. Like I know Sark probably doesn't really like the Wildcat package, but I mean, it works. And I say don't be afraid to use it. Get Roshan and Bijan on the field at the same time. Not Josh Thompson, Brennan Thompson. He played snaps, but I don't think he ever touched a ball. That guy's got elite speed, and honestly, it wouldn't shock me if Sark was just surprising and holding on to him to surprise Alabama. And I expect to see him get a few touches. And then, of course, the former Bama players, it's time for them to get their shine on too. Keelan Robinson and Ajay Hall. I promise you, while they might not be key players to the game, I'm sure Sark has a few plays up his sleeve where he's going to have them featured. And you know that Ajay, I mean, maybe not Keelan Robinson, but Ajay Hall for sure. He's going to be ready to play Alabama. Yeah, I expect to see a little bit more trickery, creativity, and excitement, especially if we're ever in a hole. We're going to need to really pop things off. Bijan in the passing game too. That's one thing we really didn't see. And Bijan screens or Bijan intermediate throws, I think, are going to be something that can potentially be really effective, especially with his ability to make unbelievable cuts. Even in big traffic. And last player I want to mention is Jordan Whittington, who I played a lot of the ULM game, but didn't get too many targets. I think he'll have to, along with Jatavian Sanders, will be a security blanket and someone that we're going to rely on in this game. I expect a big game out of him because, Sanders put on such great film in the Louisiana game, Monroe game. So I know that Bama is going to be more than aware of what Whittington brings, but I think a lot of the focus is going to be on some of the other guys, and I think Whittington should be able to get some very favorable matchups. So look out for number 4. Yeah, and I mean it's not prime time, but it's one of the biggest games of the year. You got to think about Heisman implications in this game because you got 3 pretty obvious candidates and Will Anderson, Bryce Young, and Bijan Robinson. So be looking out for a few Heisman moments, and hopefully they come more on Bijan's side than anyone else's. But yeah, this is a big game for Bijan. If this is a national stage kind of game, and if he can do some crazy stuff against Bama, then look out. The hype train is coming for him. One more quick thing before we hop into predictions. Let's briefly cover just stakes of the game. Myers, I'm going to hand it back to you. Run me through kind of how you see this game. Not so much playing out. That'll be in the predictions section, but what are the stakes here? What's that stake?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a nice setup for Texas playing this game so early in the season where we really have nothing to lose at all. And I mean, that's true. Everybody look at it because no one's giving us a chance to win this game. No one's giving us a chance to even keep it close. Vegas has this minus, plus 20. And then also the fact that it's not a Big 12 game and it won't affect our quest or whatever to win a Big 12 title. And it's kind of a nice thing to have them so early because, like, I mean, I'm sorry, playing Bama now and then playing Texas Tech in 2 weeks, like that's going to help. I mean, just like, okay, there's no Will Anderson on Texas Tech. There's no Bryce Young on Baylor. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's nice to get that test so early, just kind of, for some perspective for our team. I want to see, assuming we do get blown out or something like that, I want to see our team just not fold and just roll into a ball and do what we've done the past 13 years whenever things start going sideways. I want to see us bounce back and if we do lose and then go out and play UTSA and beat them comfortably and then go into Big 12 play, with a lot of morale high. We can't let this game define us, even though I think we're capable of winning it. Sark was right. Like, it's not going to define our season. But with that said, I think we need to go out and, pull out all the stops and tricks to win this game, because if you do win this game, man, then you're in a really good spot and everything changes. So, and then the whole respectable loss conversation. I mean, I'm not looking, yeah, there could be a moral victory against Bama, but I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm just hoping that we look good and competitive.
If there's a one stake, I think is, and I kind of harps on the respectable loss, and I really hate that type of notion myself. But we are going to the SEC. It probably sounds like if it happens, it might happen next year. I think this is going to set up how people look at us. I think for sure. How we look is how we'll be perceived in the SEC, and whether that's a good thing or bad thing, it is something that is going to be a thing. So just the way we play, it will probably be how we perceive for the next 2-3 years in the SEC. So.
All right. Prediction time. Let's hop into it. Myers, I'm going to hand it back up to you, unless you want me to go first real quick.
Let's hear yours first, Trevor. I'm still thinking.
All right. Okay. Well, I've thought about it, and I'm already looking at the predictions, at least that we have written down. I don't know if anyone's going to make any audibles here, but I have Bama winning 44-31. So Texas will cover that 20-point spread. Yeah, I'm curious. The game plan here is going to be kind of interesting because traditionally, football logic tells you if you're playing a superior team, you want to control clock and dominate time of possession. But that's really not Sark's MO. Sark is a all gas, no brakes, and likes to score quickly and at will. I don't know. I think that might be a good idea. But at the same time, like, I don't know if I want to get in a track beat with Alabama. And I'm my prediction reflects somewhere in the middle where it's not going to be like a 50-50 type game, but something more somewhat high scoring, but not crazy either. Because I do think that both defenses are going to have success. Texas is going to get stopped by Alabama's defense. It's just going to happen. And I think Texas has the ability to stop Alabama's offense. So I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm saying 44-31. I think Bama's talent and coaching prowess is going to probably outshine Texas's. But given the 11 a.m. kickoff and home field advantage, I do, and the fact that Texas always seems to get up for these big games, minus Arkansas last year, but historically, at least in recent memory, Texas performs really well in big games like this. So, I think it'll be a little bit closer than Vegas is telling us, but it wouldn't shock me if we get blown out either, because again, it's Alabama, and last year's Arkansas game was not fun. So 44-31.
Okay. I think also my heart tells me, I've given throughout the whole week, I've been like, well, this and this and this and that, we could win this. Like, we're in this. And you're like, but I still think we're raw, and I still think we have a lot to prove. I think we keep it relatively close. I think it gets away from us at the end, but I got us losing 41-28. I do think we cover. I think that 20-point spread is a little disrespectful, just a little disrespectful. Like 20 points, like, okay. Like Matt said, that's like the largest we've been an underdog in a whole lifetime. That's just, come on now. So 41-28. Look, if you look in the past, Bama's road games, big time road games, they don't dominate all the time. They have hiccups. Look at the A&M game. Look the Florida game. Granted, it was Georgia, but still on the road. Like, hey, they can get gotten. There's a reason why. This is also why I hate SEC scheduling. But there's a reason why they never do these types of things. You know what I mean? There's a reason why they're always on the top. Their schedule is always very, very, very conducive to them racking up wins. And I'm sure they have Mercer in like November. So like, you see what I'm getting at. They're not used to this type of thing. So there is a precedent of them falling short or faltering a little bit, and I'll take those chances, but I still think we fall a little short.
All right, boys. Someone has to do it. Okay. I am picking the Texas Longhorns to win on Saturday and beat Alabama. Put it on record. Screenshot this. Record this. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Bijan Robinson. And they're not going to be able to stop Quinn Ewers either, because Quinn Ewers was just knocking the rust off last Saturday. And this Saturday, he's going to start letting it fling. And they're not going to be able to guard Xavier Worthy. It's going to be a track meet. They're going to score on us like crazy too, because our defense is not that good yet. But they're not going to be able to stop our offense. Will Anderson will do good against the run, but I feel like he's not going to just destroy us like people are speculating. Bama 2021, Bama, yes, they went to the national championship. Yes, they had a Heisman. But like Madrid said, if you go back and look at that team, like game by game, I mean, LSU almost beat them at home. Auburn should have beat them. That was a miracle at home. And Auburn was terrible. Same with Florida. Florida should have beat them. Florida was terrible. Calzada beat them in Kyle Field. Like, more often than not, when they're on the road, at least last year, they struggled and they lost. And And I don't think this team is dramatically better than last year's team. I think last year's team probably had more talent. I mean, at least at this point. Maybe I'm off base with that, but I just feel like this is a good spot for Texas. This is our Super Bowl. We always talk about teams having their Super Bowl against Texas in the Big 12. Well, now it's like the roles have reversed. Like we get to play Bama at home, and we never get to do that, and our players will be ready for it. And I'm sure Bama, it's their Super Bowl too. I mean, they're excited to play Texas too. But I think it's just being at home, and I think this game means more to us than it does to them a little bit. And the crowd behind us, and I think they're just not gonna be able to stop Bijan. Like I'm saying, we're gonna go out there, let our nuts hang, and Texas is gonna win on a 2-point conversion. And we might end up going 7-5, but we're gonna win on Saturday. That's all I'm saying.
What's your score? Did you give one?
Yeah, 46-45 Texas.
Ooh. All right. So I wanted to end the video on a bit of a interesting take here that I have developed. I thought about this late last night in the shower contemplating the Texas Alabama game. And I want to start with the caveat that I am being kind of sarcastic here. And by kind of, I am being fully sarcastic here. So don't take everything that I say as complete truth and honesty, that this is how I actually feel. But do take it a little bit lightly, because there's some reasoning to this. When you look at, with this game, you think back to Texas, Alabama, 2010 Rose Bowl, Colt McCoy gets hurt. From this point on, the trajectories in the two different programs of Texas and Alabama are so unbelievably different. Like Alabama has been on a trajectory unlike no other. They have become one of the greatest college football dynasties of all time. Meanwhile, Texas, a historically great program that has not really encountered too much, downturn in their history, has been unbelievable.
You're not gonna do this.
I think I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but like if you have one around, I suggest putting it on here. I think we may be living in a college football simulation, and that simulation has been set. And it got set when Colt McCoy got hurt in that game 12 years ago. Alabama's been living in a simulation of greatness. Texas has been living in a simulation of absolute crap. The simulation can be reset this Saturday.
Jesus Christ.
When they play. If Texas finds a way to win the game, I'm not saying like Bryce Young needs to get hurt or anything ridiculous like that, like Colt did. That I never will wish injury on a player. But if Texas finds a way to win this game, I think the tides will be turned and Texas can officially get back to being Texas. And Alabama, Alabama's always been great. So I'm not wishing that Alabama switch spots with us and endure just a decade plus of crap. But maybe Alabama will actually be, a little more beatable, a little more normal, great, but not elite, not unbelievable, So yeah, that's my take. And I'm sure, look, I'm sure someone out here is watching this and they're like, oh, I thought of the same thing. Trevor stole from me. Like maybe it was on a message board somewhere. I don't know. I just thought of it last night. I felt like I needed to share, and again, I'm being sarcastic, but I think there's legitimate truth to this. We might be living in a simulation of college football right now. And that simulation can be reset if Texas beats Alabama. So with that said, that's my final thought. Texas needs to beat Bama in order for us to achieve greatness. I know I didn't predict it, but fortunately Matt did, and hopefully it'll happen. So with all that said, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll end the video tonight or today, whenever you're watching it. And big game Saturday, 11 a.m. We'll be watching. Maybe see you there. Horns up. Y'all take care. We'll catch you in the next one.
Yes, sir.